By now, we've covered a lot of the essentials of HTML. All that's left to do is to take a closer look at HTML5 and look at what new features we got that we didn't have with previous versions of HTML. So let's go ahead and create our HTML file. This time I'm using the Emmet shortcuts here so that I don't have to type out the entire tag. I can just do head tab to create a head tag, and then a body, and then press tab to create a body tag. Inside the head, let's add our title and call it HTML5 Multimedia. Now let's go into our body tag, and the first multimedia element we'll cover. There are really just three main ones. It's audio, video, and everything else being the third one. And let's start with audio. Create an H1 called audio in HTML, and HTML5 created a separate tag for this called audio. And when I press tab, Emmet will automatically suggest a source for our audio file. So I'm going to go and find the background music for this course, kindly provided by Exist Strategy. Shout out to Anthony for being generous with his music. I bought his albums a while back and reached out to him, and he graciously provided them for this course. So I copied over Sunsets and pasted it into our web folder where the HTML5 multimedia.html file is. And I'm just going to rename this file to be something a little bit more code friendly. So sunsets.flac. By the way, FLAC is a lossless compression format. Music that's created with FLAC sounds significantly better to audio files. By audio files, I mean PH files, meaning people who are really into audio. And it also has a wider range of volume that you can do. So I'm going to reference sunsets.flac. Now here's the trick. We have to specify a controls attribute when playing audio files. And that's how all these controls show up. Otherwise, if you don't specify controls, you really won't be able to do anything with this audio file. Another property you can specify is loop, so that once the music ends, it'll start playing again. And here's a property that you can specify but generally don't want to, and that's autoplay. Most people find it really annoying when as soon as they enter a page, audio starts playing. That's generally not something you want to include unless you're an evil web designer or web developer. In that case, sure, go ahead and include autoplay and be your evil self, you. So I'm going to save, and now we can play Sunsets. I'm just going to leave that running. And now, let's dive into video. Similar to audio files, we can specify a source for the video. I was just kidding about leaving this running, by the way. I'll actually have Sunsets as the background music for this video so that it sounds a little bit nicer. Okay, let's specify that we're about to dive into video with the H1 tag. Video files in HTML. And this is going to get really meta because I'm actually going to include one of my video lessons as the source file for this video tag. So in our web folder, I've specified the tooling up video. And just like before, I'm going to rename this video slightly so that it's easier to reference and call it tooling_up. Now back in our HTML file, I'm going to reference this video as the source, toolingup.mp4. You can see that the video is included. We don't really see any controls for it, so there's no real way to play it. So let's add some controls. So now that added some controls here at the bottom. The other thing we don't see is the entire video because it's too large. So with the video tag, we can also specify a height, and let's have this video be 600. That's still kind of large. Let's do 300. That fits the screen pretty nicely. And now when we play this video, it's from back when we were creating the Hello World application. So this is pretty meta right here. We have a video tag about a video that I recorded while I'm recording a video. And you might be wondering why the audio tag and the video tag aren't self-closing tags. Well, it's a good idea to keep them non-self-closing tags because in case somebody's still stuck in the Stone Age and doesn't have a browser that supports HTML5 yet, I think it's something like 3%, 2 to 3% of the entire population of web surfers. If they're using a browser that doesn't support the audio and video tags, you can say your browser doesn't support audio files, and then right here inside the video tag you can say your browser doesn't support the latest web standards. And inside the video tag we can specify other ways to access this video, which is actually what I'm going to get into now. And you might be wondering, well, how did browsers show video and audio before these video and audio tags made it so easy? Let's create a header for that and call this everything else. And I call it everything else because this is where things get a little bit complicated. The 3 tags that include everything else that you might find, all other file formats like animations and Flash and PDFs, are iframe. And you can see Emmett suggests I include a source with a frame border. There's also the embed tag. And again, Emmett suggests I include a source. Notice that the embed tag is self-closing or auto-closing, whichever one you want to call it. And here we can specify, whether it's a PDF or whether it's Flash or even whether it's an SVG, because SVGs are actually stored as raw shapes inside of HTML. So we can actually specify this being an SVG. The 3rd tag is the object tag. And this time it doesn't specify a source, but rather data. So very subtle differences between these 3 tags, and really it comes down to do what the provider recommends. For example, when I want to go on YouTube, first result that shows up is Heroes of the Storm. Let's check this out. It's a trailer for a new game by Blizzard. Now when I go to share and I want to embed, YouTube recommends I use the iframe tag. So I'll use iframe because YouTube says I should use iframe. Copy, paste, so it shows up. When it comes to embed and object, the difference gets a little bit trickier and much more subtle because they essentially do the exact same thing. Although do notice that embed is a self-closing tag, whereas object allows you to enter other elements inside it. Embed used to be used way back in the day and was never fully supported until HTML5. Even to this day, embed is used much less frequently than object because object allows you with a fallback in case your browser doesn't support an object tag, which is very rare, by the way, because object has been around since HTML4. So with object, we can specify a fallback text in case your browser doesn't support this. The rule of thumb for this is that just use object, embed is the HTML5 tag for it, and it is supported in HTML5, but it's really not necessary. So just to show you a little bit of how object works, I'm going to specify a type, application/PDF, and data to be object embed.pdf. It's just a PDF of a web page I just downloaded discussing objects and embeds. And now when I press save and reload the browser, this PDF shows up on the bottom. And I can also specify in the object tag width equals 400 and then height equals 100%. This is another unit you can include. With the object tag, you can also get other features included depending on the file type, like download, print, rotate. Play around with the object tag in case you want to download a PDF, but also know embed is also now supported in HTML5. By the way, another interesting shortcut that I just used is command/ or control/ to make multiple lines a comment. Play around with both. Sometimes you might prefer one over the other depending on which attributes it has, but that's how you embed other types of content. Now, a quick note, on embedding videos. Most hosts that host your website will charge an extra fee for high bandwidth uploads like videos. What I recommend you do, if you want to host your own video files on your website, is to actually use what's called a CDN, or Content Delivery Network. There are a lot of CDN providers. There's Cloudflare, Google, Microsoft has its own CDN, Amazon has its own CDN. Everyone and their grandma has their own CDN. So if you really want to host large video files, use a CDN, because CDNs optimize for delivery to various different users for your video. You can also use Vimeo. Vimeo is a fairly professional way to upload your videos and use them in your website. Try to avoid using YouTube unless you don't mind ads. The kind of hosting providers that we're going to discuss later on in the course won't generally allow you to upload large video files. So that's it for dealing with multimedia in HTML5.